Mike Pachelli here, coming to you from my studio in the south of France. I'm feeling good and hope you are too. For this lesson, I'm going to take a look at I Feel Fine by the Beatles, recorded October 18th, 1964, during their Beatles for Sale session. It took them 9 takes to get it perfectly. That's because it's a deceptively simple song, but very well worked out. It's based on a Lennon riff he came up with, inspired by Bobby Parker's Watch Your Step, and it also features some really cool Latin rhythm and blues type drumming that Ringo did so well, kind of like Milt Turner played in Ray Charles's band. And it's one of the styles Ringo could do that attracted the Beatles to Ringo in the first place. Fun facts to know and tell: it's the first song that the Beatles did the backing track before they did the vocals, because apparently initially it was a little difficult for John to sing and play at the same time. John plays a Gibson J160E acoustic on the song with a magnetic pickup, and George is playing a Tennessean. And again, the deliberate way that John and George play together is just so amazing. So let's take a look at it. The song starts off with some really cool feedback. Now what happened was, John took his Gibson J160E and he leaned it on his amp while the amp was still turned on. Now that's an acoustic guitar with an electric guitar pickup, kind of a single coil Gibson version of a P90. Paul played a note, and the vibration of the bass made the acoustic guitar feed back. And they loved the sound of it, so they wanted to do it again. They recorded it, and even though EMI never wanted any kind of feedback on a recording, they convinced George Martin to cut and paste that at the beginning of the song. So we get that wonderful feedback at the beginning of the tune. I try to simulate it at the end of this lesson, getting this guy to feedback, and I ran it through a distortion pedal to try to make it sound similar. It's not perfect, but you'll get the idea. So anyhow, the riff that John based the song on are these notes. Right? Let me get a close-up of that so you can see those notes perfectly. But John plays that riff using a full D bar chord, like this. Let me get a close-up of that for you. So those are the notes that he intended. Fun facts to know and tell: he liked that riff so much that he wanted to try to sneak it in every song, but the rest of the Beatles would have none of that. But anyhow, he doesn't play it all that precisely all the time. It's more like just, kind of tossed off. So when you're doing it, you don't have to make every note sound perfectly clear, because very seldom do they. But like at the very beginning, John plays doesn't play the ending of that riff. He plays, just kind of sliding to the next change, which is just great. So taking liberty with the riff that he wrote, right? Now, there's 3 versions of it. That's one version. If you take it and don't complete the riff, when he gets down to the G, he kind of rolls. He rolls on the riff like. Right? Hear that? And then he plays it straight. So you have 3 versions of the same riff, right? You have sliding down one, and then kind of the rolling one, and a straight one. Now what's really cool is when they play it straight, George plays it exactly straight with John. It was worked out. And there's a couple of times on the record where they roll it together. So it was something they were cognizant of, and they make it happen a number of times. Just so cool. Shows how much they worked on a song to get it just right. Okay, during the verse, John is playing just this raucous kind of, G7. And John Lennon had a way of playing like where he could just roll through it and make the accents, even though they sound like they're all on the upbeat, he can make an upbeat sound on a downstroke. That's just part of his genius. I have to really accent it to get it to sound like it did sound, but he's rolling just through it like it's nothing. And when he goes up to the D7, he plays the D7. But I'm in love with her, he strums it kind of like the vocal. Right, so from and they hit that C on the upbeat. It's just such wonderful, raucous, rhythm guitar playing. It's just so good. Now on the chorus, I believe John had a way he wanted to play it every time, but he plays it 3 times one way and the first time a different way. And it may be unintentional, but the very first time, and the chorus goes G to B minor, C to a Lennon banjo D, and then the G, B minor, A minor, and to a D7, right? But the very first time you hear John playing a rhythm different, he plays it like this. And mainly on the 3rd and 4th string, like. And then kind of a, casual strum on C. Then the next time, he plays what I think is what he intended. And he strums through it, sort of like, well, those are the accents, like. Right? So the very first time, it's, and then, just so cool, right? Let's see if I can do it better. During George's solo, John continues to play kind of like a verse, but instead of having the real harsh G7 sound, it's more inside G7. Like, Then John takes it all by himself. You hear him play the lick all by himself. He goes. The same thing, he kind of rolls the first one, but the second one, when George comes in, he plays straight. So again, using those 3 different variations. Just so great. Just so great. So rock and roll, reckless abandon. I just love that. Okay, what else? Comes back, and then the second time, like I already showed you, he plays the chorus the same way twice, Then it's an A minor. I forget if he plays the D7 there or there. One of those. I'll do it correctly at the end when I do a demo of the whole song. And then at on the way out, playing straight. They play the lick the straight way. Just such great rock and roll playing. I mean, how could you not love that? All right, let's talk about George Harrison's part. Once again, George proves that he's just the epitome of taste and humility on guitar, but his part adds so much. For this, I'll be using my Gretsch Country Classic, and I'm plugged into a AC30, 1963 AC30, but I'm also using the Universal Audio aux. And what that is you plug your guitar into the AC30, out of the AC30 into the Universal Audio aux, and then from the Universal Audio aux back into the speaker cabinet of the AC30. And the aux gives you different choices of mic placement. You could pick a million different mics in a million different cabinets. So I have them on separate channels, and I'll be able to, mix and match to get whatever sound I want later. I'll take more time to do it when I do the performance at the end. But anyhow, that's the signal processing, if you care. Now, what's so cool about this is the same riff that John's playing, George plays, but there's actually now another version. So it's like 4 versions of the same riff. So George plays, when he first enters, John starts and he first enters, George plays the straight riff. Right? Single note, so you can hear it that way. Right? Then the second time George plays what I call the miss, where you don't go down to the D, you just go. So the straight one is, the miss is, and then the third one is that roll, which sounds like, and if you play it as a bar chord, so there's like 4 versions of the same great riff, and they do it together. Especially the straight one they do together, and that little roll thing George uses on the chorus too. So again, when he first comes in, he plays straight. He goes miss, roll, straight. Right? So wonderful. Now on George does a little, hybrid picking. Right? So he's just on a D to a C, but you see that? All right? And then when he gets down, he does a miss. So. Second verse, he starts off straight, rolls, then a miss. Hybrid on the way down, instead of hitting the A note, instead of going, he goes to the D. And then a roll on the G. I'll do it exactly as George did on the performance section at the end, but I just think it's so interesting and cool that they play it differently, and you can see, especially when they do the straight one, they do it together. It's worked out when they're going to go, there's no two ways about that. They want to get that, solid. Now on the chorus, George incorporates the kind of roll thing at first. On the G, he goes, right? It's in the B minor. And then, a George Harrison C, which is like C over E, up to D over F sharp. Right? So he goes, yeah. Then he rolls again. Straight A minor, D. Straight D, first time. It's different second time. during the solo, John is playing just the chords that I showed you earlier, and George is playing 3 times on guitar, just the straight line. And when he goes up, he joins John on a straight one. And George cuts out, and John takes it from there. Okay, so then there's the solo. All right, the solo is very simple. The solo was overdubbed over what I just played, actually. And again, I'll put it together at the end so it makes more sense than I may be explaining. But the solo is simple. It's just... So just kind of bluesy, like thinking G again, you know. Slide that up a whole step. Slide it. Slide down. And George is nice and behind the beat. Plays that same line twice. And he goes up and gets a straight one. So when he gets that one, it's all 3 of them are playing. The acoustic's playing it, his rhythm's playing it, and the lead guitar is playing it. So you're really powerful there before the band drops out, and John does it on acoustic all by himself. So it's just so effective. The second chorus, George again does the little roll, you know. Right? He rolls on a C7. Right? So. And then a straight D. And then again, roll on the G. A minor. And George plays this D7. So yeah, so John's playing that D7. Isn't that cool? Especially the roll on the C, right? Baby, you know, same back to it. And then on the very end, now this, at the very end, George does the little roll lick, but John plays it straight. So George coming down. And George ends with this little lick. So if you're the only lead guitarist and you want to come down and do both parts, just you play half of that last G. So. Just perfect parts that make that song just amazing. Okay, so for fun, I'm going to put this all together and do a version of it, and then I'll say see you later.
I'm in love with her and I feel fine. fine. Ooh. Baby says she's mine, you know, she tells me all the time, you know, she said so. I'm in love with her and I feel fine. I am so glad that she's my little girl. She's so glad she's telling all the world that her baby buys the things, you know. He buys her diamond rings, you know, she said so. She's in love with me and I feel fine. She's in love with me and I feel fine.
And that's how you play I Feel Fine by the Beatles. Hey, if you would, please subscribe to this channel. And if you'd like to drop me a line, do so at MikePachelli.com. It's always cool to hear from you, and I answer every email. So until next time, I'm Mike Pachelli. Thanks for hanging out with me.